Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on, my lordy? Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you?
Have me here today.
Well, let's get into it.
Okay.
What do you think is the future? What does the future look like for the Bernie Sanders movement?
Well, for the Bernie Sanders campaign, for his bid for to earn the nomination for the Democratic Party to be the president, if we believe the media, then it's over. But if we know history, we know that FDR actually went to the convention, contested it, and he became president. So at this point, I'm not paying attention to numbers as far as his presidential bid is concerned. I'm looking at history and the stranger things have happened way that history kind of plays out sometimes. So I'm glad he's going all the way to the convention. And I'm not making any assumptions. I'm not coming to any conclusions about the outcome of what that will be. But I do know that as far as his bid to become the Democratic nominee for president is concerned, he must go all the way to the convention. As far as the movement is concerned, that can't stop at the convention. It can't stop with the next state he may lose. And I'm not saying that he's about to lose a state. I'm just saying that because we don't know the outcome of the upcoming primaries, he might lose a few states coming up. But the movement can't stop there. We have to continue to push for progressive policies and to back progressive politicians who will pass legislation that reflects those progressive policies beyond the presidential election in November. We have to focus on the midterm elections, which is what the Tea Party did in 2010 and in 2014, which is why we have a Congress that is obstructionist, that people often point to when we talk about how some of us are Bernie or bust. People say, well, if Bernie becomes president, then how's he going to get his legislation passed with this obstructionist Congress? As if the people who make up the obstructionist Congress came out of nowhere.
But I mean, and I'm glad you brought up Bernie or bust, because as we get closer and closer to the convention, there seems to be this growing discontent amongst a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters who just feel that they just cannot support Hillary Clinton, even if Bernie Sanders himself endorses her. You have this whole Bernie or bust movement,
right?
And so, how would that play out? You think in the convention? Would the Bernie or bust people, as have been the points have been made by others, that the Bernie or bust people are really hurting their own cause as opposed to uniting the party?
Well, let me try to stay on track and address each issue as I see them. When we talk about uniting the party, and that's the edict, the mandate that comes down from the DNC, that no matter what, no matter who wins the nomination at the convention, everyone who doesn't want a Republican in the White House should vote for the Democratic candidate. When the DNC tells me that I have to vote for someone who I know does not have my interests at heart in order to unify the party, I know that they are ignoring their own hand in creating the situation we're faced with right now. I just mentioned the Tea Party taking over Congress and Republicans taking over Congress and governors' offices and mayoral offices and other offices at the state level. That happened because the DNC ignored Democratic candidates in the midterms, because the DNC didn't push back against the Republican lie and slander machine against President Obama before the midterms. That happened because it was the DNC that told President Obama, because you're having all of this negative press from the Republicans, you're kind of toxic, so we don't want you campaigning with our Democratic candidates in the midterms. So there wasn't any kind of excitement in the Democratic so-called base about supporting candidates who support the president and his policies.
So really what you're saying is that, you know, all of this talk of uniting the party wasn't united then.
The party wasn't united then. The party abandoned Obama when the Democratic Party had the majority in Congress.
Now we just, I just read somewhere where just, what was it, the other day, that President Obama had opposition from members of his own party against trying to lower drug prices.
Right. And we see the same kind of, I hate to use the latest buzzwords, but I don't know what else to call it. This is the same kind of establishment machine, democratic kind of behavior. It's this herd mentality where this is what the leadership says that we have to do. And the leadership says we have to do it because the people who give us money say that we have to do it. Because Bernie Sanders has always been right about the issue of the amount of money that is corrupting politics. And if we think that is only true with Republicans, we as non-Republicans, whether we be Democrats or independents or undecided, we're deluding ourselves. That's a huge problem in the Democratic Party as well. And that's what's manifesting itself in this issue with the drug prices, because it is the pharmaceutical companies that did not like the plans that President Obama had for lowering the drug prices. They realized they weren't going to make a lot of money, and they didn't want the change to happen as fast as Obama wanted it to. So they reached out to the people they've been funneling money to and said, you need to stop this. You need to slow this down. We understand that you might not be able to completely stop it from ever happening, but you need to get him to pump his brakes on this a little bit. And that's exactly what they did.
Now, you know, you and I both are on social media a lot, and I noticed that ever since this this momentum of the Bernie or Bust crowd, this you know, this movement, you know, certain friends of ours that, you know, we look on that are Bernie supporters, I've seen a lot of people post things from Jill Stein, you know, from the Green Party.
Yep.
Could this discontent with the Bernie Sanders supporters, could this be a big boost for the Green Party? And what is the chances of Bernie Sanders supporters actually creating a third party, as I have seen a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters suggest?
I am choosing to be optimistic and believing that the chances are very good that we are going to form a third party. Whether we hitch our wagon to the Green Party or whether we grow the Progressive Party, we need to form a third party. And from my perspective, I don't even like to think in terms of what are the chances of it happening, because I believe that there are enough people involved in supporting Sanders and who are fervently Bernie or Bust, who, even if a lot of people just fizzle out and go away, there are enough of us who realize that this movement cannot die, that we'll do it ourselves. And I do believe that the level of discontent with the current two-party system and the current lack of working for the people that the Democratic Party has exhibited over the past 20, 30 years, maybe even 40 years or longer, I think that's enough to compel people to not let this movement fizzle out, to not let this opportunity to form a viable third party get away from us. One of the ways that we need to do that, one of the ways we need to ensure that we do create a viable third party is to unite all of these independent groups. We can't just say, we've just got the Bernie or Bust supporters over here who want to support Jill Stein. And then there are others of us who we prefer Elizabeth Warren. Then you've got Pan-Africanists like you and me, who are looking at both of these candidates and going, well, what are they going to do for African Americans?
Right.
Where's our voice? Well, we need to form our own thing, and we need to create a third party that is centered around the issues that affect all of these groups of people who have been ignored by not just the Democratic establishment, but the Republican establishment too. Because the discussion has always been framed that if you don't support a Democrat, then you must automatically support the Republican.
Right, it's like the lesser of two evils.
Right, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing that argument, because there's nothing noble or positive or beneficial in supporting the lesser of two evils, because you're still choosing evil.
It's funny, Amy Goodman of Democracy Now!
I have a woman crush on her, I just do.
Yeah, she had a video that's been circulating around, and she raised an interesting point. She said something about how the media has ruined this election. Look, I think in the video she mentioned that there was a study done, and that Donald Trump was mentioned. I think he had like 83. I'm sure it's more than minutes, but maybe he's been mentioned like I think it was 83 minutes of coverage.
Yeah,
as opposed
to Bernie Sanders,
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
Right. And and then look, you and I always talk about how the media treats this whole election that we've been looking at as just a horse race. They boiled it all down to delegates. Right. No one really gets involved in the issues. No one talks about the background of the candidates. No one talks about actual policy. It's all about delegates, and that seems to be the only thing they're focusing on. So
I being a politics junkie since high school, I've been really, really disappointed. Isn't even a good word. I've been really appalled and just repulsed and disgusted by the way the major media outlets, especially the so-called news outlets, have covered the candidates in this primary season. Do you know why Donald Trump is leading in the polls? Because the media said he should be. Because the media made Donald Trump the focus of this primary season for Republicans. And for those people who are fiscally or socially conservative, who may not consider themselves Republicans, but who don't trust the Republican establishment anymore. That's the media's fault. This is not the first time Donald Trump has run for president. He's run for president before. He was just as wacky then as he is now. He's the same guy. The only difference is when he ran, I think it was in 2000 maybe, or 2000, I can't remember. It was 2008. I think it was 2008. And maybe that wasn't even the first time. But the only difference then was that he didn't get the media coverage then that he's getting now. Now, it seems that every segment on politics, that every news outlet runs, starts with Donald Trump. And they weave his narrative out throughout whomever else they're talking about.
And I think it was somewhere where they even they even suggested that he's getting like free advertisement.
He is,
because the media keeps mentioning him. They keep talking about him all the time.
Right.
And where other candidates have to spend maybe millions of dollars on commercials.
Right.
You know, I was looking at one news channel and they were saying how Donald Trump actually only put out like a handful of commercials.
Yeah.
Compared to, you know, his running mates and everything else, you know.
And I think the reason, I think people have underestimated Donald Trump, and you and I have talked about this before, and I said early on, people are calling him stupid because they're not hearing any solid policy from him. So they think that he is unintelligent. He may be unintelligent on actual policy issues, and I do believe that. I don't believe he has an actual solid, viable, reasonable policy position or a solution for any problem. I really do believe that. But I don't believe he's not intelligent. Donald Trump, however you feel about him as a presidential candidate or as a person, he has had several successful runs of a very popular television show. He's very business savvy. Yes, he's had 4 bankruptcies and quite a few divorces, probably I think as many divorces as he's had bankruptcies. So, you know, he doesn't have this great successful string of stellar accomplishments. He's had quite a few pitfalls in there too. But through his run with The Apprentice show, he's at least learned about free marketing. And he's gotten that. He's been able to get that from every single major news outlet that exists. And let me just add, with the whole media piece, I can't talk about Trump without talking about Clinton. Because even though Trump has received more media coverage than any other candidate, and that's including Hillary Clinton, she still received more favorable and clearly biased favorable media coverage than Bernie Sanders. The reason Americans think that Bernie Sanders' platform is non-existent, the reason people think that he doesn't have solutions to any of the problems that he brings up, the reason people don't know anything about him is because the media doesn't talk about him, and they intentionally have not talked about him. And we have to ask the question, why is that? Why is our media so clearly biased? Why do we not have any more Edward R. Murrows? Why are we not getting actual information from our media anymore, and when did that happen? You and I talk about all the time, when we focus on issues, we have to be careful that we step back and we ask the question, why is that? Because when we ask that question, we find out where the root of the problem is. We find out where the source is. And the reason our media is the way it is today, biased and controlled by a handful of corporations that feed us the information that they want us to have, is because of the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Not going to go into that in detail right now, but you need to look that up, because that piece of legislation began the era of media conglomerate emergence, where we used to have independent media stations, and this includes radio, television, and cable. The 1996 Telecommunications Act allowed individual entities unlimited ability to buy up as many media outlets as they wanted to. So you've got a few companies or a few individuals with a lot of money buying up all of the media outlets and controlling the content in those outlets. So that's why we have the media that doesn't educate us, doesn't give us actual information. It just feeds us the talking points and the perspectives that the people who own the outlets want us to have.
Are you on, boy? Which side are you on, my lordy? Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on, my lordy?
See, before I draw the line, let me welcome you close to all the folks who knew Obama sold the people a hoax. Gave the money to suckers while our community's still poor. Withdrew the troops but started another war. Colonizing, terrorizing, creating the oil crisis so they can make a kill on no food and gas prices. Prisons is filling, they trying to lock up the future. Militarized borders and control of